Hi guys, Mr. Schultz here. I'm going to talk to you guys today about how to do the watercolor pencil part of your project. First thing to get started, you need your project, and then you need a water container that has clean water in it. You need some paper towels, and you need a soft bristled brush like this one, or there's some smaller ones like this that have flexible bristles, and they should have short handles. If you pick up another paintbrush that does not have the softer bristles but instead has like more like bristly, like harder bristles, that's not the right kind of paintbrush for watercolor. So you want to make sure that you have a brush like this with the short handle and the softer bristles. And then you're also going to need to pick out your watercolor pencils for your project. You can use up to 6 colors on your project, no less than 2, no more than 6. So you can kind of plan things out for your project. You want to make sure that you're repeating colors throughout your project as you go. So pick those out ahead of time. I'm going to pick out a few different colors here. Just kind of get myself set up. All right, so I'm going to start with these colors, just like a basic rainbow of colors, and that's going to let me have lots of choices when I'm coloring. You also want to make sure that your table has a handheld pencil sharpener. You're not going to want to use the electric pencil sharpener with these pencils because the electric pencil sharpener really chews them up. All right, so once you have everything that you need and you're set up ready to go, what you're going to start with is just coloring with the colored pencil and coloring your project so that you're just outlining with a little bit of graded value around your objects. So I'm going to start with some green here, and we're going to pretend that I have finished Zendoodling my entire project. You can see that I started down here, but I did not get a chance to finish before I had to start making this video. So we're just going to pretend like I have Zendoodled all of my background spaces. And when you start adding color to your project, you can decide if you want to leave your letters blank and leave them white, or if you want to color them in. All of your background and all of your objects need to be colored in unless you have a white object, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but all of your objects in your background need to be colored. Your border is going to be left white, and you can decide if you want to leave your letters white. You don't have to leave them white, but you definitely can if you want to. All right, so I'm going to show you on the S here one method for getting started with coloring your letters. And I'm going to start by just kind of going around the edges of this and outlining, and then doing a little bit of graded value away from that outline. It's not a lot of graded value, but I'm just kind of softening up away from the edge. Okay? So I'm going to continue that, and I would continue that all the way around the S. And I'm just going to use one color for my S. When I get to the E, I'm going to show you how to do 2 colors or more colors. Okay, so I'm going to continue all the way around this, just outlining. This is going to speed up here in just a second, and I'm going to finish the S, but it's going to go fast in the video. Hang on a minute here, I'm going to finish this up. All right, so now you can see I finished coloring the S, and I did that same technique all the way around the edges. So I kind of outlined it dark on the edges and then let it fade just a little bit. It's not really super neat graded value, but it's okay graded value around the edges. Now I can go ahead and add water to this now. If I do, I want to be really careful about not smearing it. And then the next, after I work on this with water, I'm going to have to move to the other side of my paper and work on something else because I can't work on this or work near this while it's wet. Okay, so to activate this watercolor, now that it's colored in, I'm going to take my paintbrush, I'm going to dip it in the water. You can see wet paintbrush now. I'm going to keep a paper towel handy in case I get too much water so I can kind of blot on the edge of the water container and then on my paper towel a little bit if I need to. And then I'm going to use circles with my paintbrush, and you can see how the paint activates on the paper now as I add water to it and use those circles, and it's going to further brighten the colors and it's going to accentuate that graded value that we created as I go. Now I'm going to need to add water back to this because I'm going to run out of water eventually on my paintbrush. And so I would just want to make sure I don't flood the stuff that I've already painted. So I'm going to make sure I blot a little bit on my paper towel before I start with the new water. So now I'm going to go back into this, and I'm still using that circle motion. You want to work somewhat quickly, but you don't want it to be messy. One of the hard things with watercolor is that if you work real slow, it tends to get kind of streaky. So you want to be careful of that. So I'm going to continue up here with this top part of the S, still using circles with my paintbrush. And now it's all filled in. Okay, now at this point I want to leave this alone. There's one thing I'm going to do here, but that's it's not really going to be painting into it. There's a couple of places where I have some puddles that I want to clean up, and so I'm going to use a dry paintbrush to soak those up. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and a paper towel, and I'm going to dry the paintbrush really good, and then I'm just going to go back to those places where there's some puddles and just kind of pick those up with the paintbrush so it doesn't like flood my whole paper, or if I like move my paper, it's not going to run. All right, so I'm going to leave this now. I can't do anything else to this S until this dries. If I'm not happy with the way that it looks, or it's a little blotchy in some places, I can come back and fix that, but I have to do it after this completely dries. So that would be the next day that I would come back and work on this again, so that you could, like tomorrow, you could come back and work on it and like touch up any areas that don't look the way you wanted. And you could color back over it. Once it's dry, you can color again, and then you can add the water again. Now the stuff that you put down the first day is not going to move, but the stuff that you put down the second day, you could get to fix that, kind of fix things up. All right, so now I'm going to move to a different part of my project. I can't work near this S anymore because if I put water next to that, it could bleed together, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so I'm going to work over here in this Zendoodle space, and I want that to be like more than one color. All right, so when I want to mix colors together, I want to pick colors that are going to be friendly together. So that means if I'm looking at my color choices here, I want to pick like colors to put together if I'm going to blend. All right, so I could use pink and purple, or I could use purple and this like lighter blue. I could use yellow and pink if I wanted to. I could use yellow and orange. I could use yellow and green. Okay, I would not want to use orange and green because they're kind of opposites and they're going to make brown when they mix together. Same thing with orange and blue. I do not want to put these two together because they're not going to blend well. And then lastly, same with yellow and violet. Do not put these together because they're going to not mix well and it's going to turn brown on your paper. All right, so when I go to paint this background area, if I want to kind of make a blended color look in the background, all I'm going to need to do, oh no, I broke the pencil head. All I'm going to need to do is color the colors next to each other using that same technique that I did with the S, but this time it's just going to be more colors. So I'm going to start with the pink, and I'm going to color the outline again, just like we talked about. And you can, you know the bubble that we put around our project? You can color in that if you want to. I'm not right now, but you could if you wanted to. You have some flexibility for what you decide to leave white on your project. All right, so I colored the pink there. Now I'm going to switch. I'm actually going to switch to orange. And I'm just going to color right next to it. Just trying to stay inside the lines here. But otherwise, I'm not too worried about exactly how smooth the graded value is, because you can tell with the Zendoodles, things don't show up quite as much as they do in other spots. All right, so I've used my two colors here, and I'm going to put some orange down here on the bottom. And now, when I color these, or activate this with the water, those colors are going to mix and kind of make a tie-dye look. So same thing again, wet your paintbrush, make sure your paper towel is handy, kind of blot on the paper towel if you need it, and then using circular motion with the paintbrush, you're going to activate that paint, and you're just going to go around and around. And then you're going to stop, let that go. See how the paint colors are kind of mixing together? As that dries, those are going to blend and kind of mix together more. All right, so I could continue those same colors over here into this Zendoodling. I could paint the fox a different color. I could paint the tortoise blues probably. But I would continue that throughout my project. All right, I want you guys to practice this on scrap paper before you start this on your project, okay? Do not just jump right into doing this on your project. I want to see and have you show me your practice before you move on, all right? If you have questions, ask. You can rewatch this video as many times as you need to, and just let me know if you have questions.